How the heck are we doing today? It's a happy Wednesday. It's a beautiful Wednesday. It's decent news. Nothing too crazy. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Let me just put the link to this on the old timeline. There we go. Today is just some more of the same. I feel like this whole week has been like that. We have slow, quiet, positive news that is trending in the right direction. And I'm really excited about today's suite of news articles that we're going to be covering, because I really feel like everything we're highlighting just kind of hits at the crux, at the core of everything I've been saying is the future of blockchain and where we're going as an industry. This also runs counter to what crypto natives would have wanted, or cypherpunks would have wanted 6-10 years ago. But that being said, I don't necessarily think that what we talk about today is negative. At the end of the day, the main goal for this technology is adoption. And so, while we might not be talking about cypherpunk ideals or supremely forward-thinking crypto native solutions, the news articles that we talk about today are going to be interesting. First, stablecoin supply has hit $300 billion. We did it, fam. We're moving on up. Now, 300 billion is a number that was already tapped, I believe, a little bit earlier this year. Yeah, I mean, we've been in the 300 billion range basically all of 2026. Not all of. But we've been kind of hovering between 290 billion and 300 billion over the past quarter or two. And we hit $300 billion with Tether adding over $5 billion in USDT supply over the past month. And really, that's just a 0.3% growth in total supply over the past month, which some could consider as a stall, especially for an asset that is the killer use case, one of the killer use cases for blockchain and crypto. Prediction markets, Bitcoin, stablecoins, RWAs, these so far have proven to be blockchain and crypto's killer use cases. Another kind of thing I want to point out with this news article is that this aggregate stablecoin supply, yeah, it's great to see $300 billion, but the U.S. enacted Genius last summer, which is the stablecoin bill, and is supposed to make it more straightforward and easier for a U.S.-based entity to launch a stablecoin. And should that have been the case, basically January 1 of this year is when, though the bill passed last summer, January 1 this year was when we would start seeing more and more stablecoin issuers. And we haven't really seen that. At least anything super crazy either. I mean, the state of Wyoming has launched a stablecoin. So has, Standard Chartered has announced plans to launch a stablecoin, and other entities. Yet still, we have really only seen $10 billion added to stablecoins in market cap in 2026, roughly, which, if we're taking a step back and we're looking at the state of where we are, this is a slow start to the year, especially when we have U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that by 2030, that stablecoins are going to be a $3 trillion market cap. and other large-scale TradFi institutions and entities also stating that they believe we're a $2 to $3 trillion market cap for this asset. So I guess we can celebrate surpassing the 300 billion mark again. The first time that number was passed was in April, so just a month ago. So we're kind of hovering there, not really seeing a lot of adoption or new stablecoin issuers in that regard. Moving on to the next piece of news, the CFTC, one of the regulators of crypto here in the US, is suing Minnesota, which is funny because Minnesota has a weird kind of relationship with crypto and blockchain. In yesterday's Daily Digital Download, we talked about how Minnesota is making it possible for banks and credit unions to hold crypto on behalf of users. But at the same time, Minnesota is also trying to hamper access to prediction markets. Now, the devil's in the detail, and there's a ton of nuance. Prediction markets are enabled by blockchain. They don't need blockchain to operate. And there's a whole plethora of other verticals that are captured in prediction markets. Specifically, I want to point out gambling. A lot of states don't want to legalize gambling, and that is the argument for why Minnesota and others are suing the CFTC, or rather in court battling the CFTC, because they don't want Polymarket. They don't want Kalshi being offered in their state, and they don't want their state's residents to be able to gamble. The CFTC and the DOJ are claiming that when the state of Minnesota or another state sues them, particularly for illegal betting, that the CFTC and the DOJ are mandating federal regulated products, and that it isn't gambling that's happening on Kalshi and Polymarket, it's swaps that are trading on CFTC-approved exchanges, and therefore they're outside of the authority of states to criminalize or prohibit them. This is likely going to be a fight that makes its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, and I would venture to guess we will see more states trying to ban Polymarket and Kalshi for purposes related to sports gambling and gambling in general, and the CFTC will probably continue to sue them. Other states that have been sued by the CFTC for attempting to shut down prediction market platforms include Illinois, Arizona, and Connecticut. Just another bullet point to a long list of watching the fight play out between the federal government and states as it pertains to prediction markets. In other state news, and this time pro-crypto, pro-cypherpunk, I would argue, the governor of South Carolina has signed into law a bill that would ban state entities from accepting or requiring payments in CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and this law also offers strong support for crypto mining. Long story short, South Carolina has now become a little bit more friendly, or has created an environment that's a little bit more friendly to crypto users and investors and businesses that want to touch crypto in the state of South Carolina. The new law states that individuals and businesses may not be prohibited from accepting digital assets as payments for goods and services, or from using self-hosted wallets or hard wallets to self-custody their digital asset holdings. Super cool. Fantastic to see a state acknowledging the right to self-custody and enshrining it into law. The bill also exempts cryptocurrencies used for payment from any tax, withholding, assessment, or charge by state or local governments. Wow. it also exempts cryptocurrencies used for payment from any additional tax, withholding, assessment, or charge. If I'm reading what this is saying, if you use your Bitcoin to pay for a good or a service, you don't have to pay tax on those gains. I am sure that there's more nuance, and I should probably dig in a little bit more before I'm able to definitively state that this is the way it is, but that's super interesting wording. Another interesting part to the bill that I appreciated was the anti-CBDC language that would prohibit any state agency, board, commission, department, or political subdivision from requiring payment or accepting CBDCs. The law, which is great because the premise of a CBDC is that the Federal Reserve can launch a digital currency that gives it the power to dictate how the holder of a CBDC can or cannot spend that currency. Let's just, for example, say that somebody in abject poverty is receiving the government dole. Take out your political assumptions as to whether folks should or shouldn't be receiving funds from the state if they live in poverty. What would you think if the state said you can only use this money for X, Y, and Z? And let's say you had an emergency and you needed to spend that money on something outside of X, Y, and Z, but because the state said that you can only use the CBDC for those particular manners, you're now effectively stuck without means to pay for that emergency that's outside of what the government said you could or couldn't spend on. If we get draconian, we can look at China and the CCP. China has the DCEP, its own CBDC for the yuan, their currency. And China also has a sort of social score going on where if your social score is low enough, then maybe you can't buy plane tickets or travel to a certain region or get train tickets. This is live. This is actually happening right now, where if you have less than 3 out of 5 stars, I'm just pulling this number out of the air, then you're not allowed to do some things, which is mandated by the state. And this isn't, like losing your right to vote if you're a felon. This is just because you act in a way that isn't socially acceptable. The state tells you where you can and can't travel, what you can and can't do. Now, when you add in a CBDC, the state can also mandate how and where and when you can spend your own money. Yikes. I don't think anybody who's a freedom lover or a lover of the features and the modalities that cryptocurrency represents would ever stand for a CBDC. In addition to anti-CBDC rhetoric, the law also provides strong support for crypto mining operations, prohibiting local governments from restricting mining operations in industrial zones or imposing specific sound level limits on mining businesses beyond the area's general noise pollution regulations. With the passage of the new law, there are also several other key crypto activities that are exempt from money transmitter licensing requirements. These activities include crypto mining, node operations, developing on-chain applications, and crypto-to-crypto trading. Hey, if you live in South Carolina, your state just backed you. If you're a builder in the blockchain and crypto space, or you're a user of crypto tokens. Super cool. Back to the most boring. Back to what's boring but works with crypto. Tokenized equities have hit an all-time high with $3.57 billion worth of total volume. A fresh all-time high. Look at this chart of tokenized equities daily derivatives volume going back to October of 2025. It is just up and to the right. Absolutely phenomenal. The majority of RWA trading volume is happening on two platforms, Binance and Hyperliquid. Notably, what came out yesterday, and I don't know if we covered this or not. I think we did. The United States SEC is offering a set of guidelines and innovation exemptions for emerging on-chain equities ecosystems. The United States government is seeing the writing on the wall, recognizing that there is a leapfrog from traditional equities, including their timeframes to settle, the necessary third parties, and they're saying that there is coming a technology, an asset class, a vertical that will leapfrog that, make it possible for people to trade quicker and cheaper, and have a trail of auditability baked into the networks that are leveraging the tokenization. And the market is just saying that this is what it wants. Look at these derivatives of tokenized equities. The trading is just absolutely insane. Let's see here. Over the past month, and this is funny, these are the weekends when there's no trading. That will change though. The only time, the reason why we are seeing trading on these days is because of Hyperliquid. And this is the value prop that tokenized equities is offering. There will be 24/7, 365 trading all around the world. Currently, equities can only be traded Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and are largely only offered to American investors. Welcome to the globalization of equities. I only wanted to point this out because the killer use cases for blockchain in 2026 are the least sexy. Mainstream traditional finance use cases, including RWAs, tokenized stonks, stablecoins, things of this nature. And on that note, Ethereum is leading the RWA race as institutional tokenization flows on chain. Total RWA cap has surpassed $65 billion, which is up 44% on the year, which started at $45 billion. This growth in RWAs is increasing competition for courting TradFi entities to tokenize their offerings onto blockchain networks. And we're starting to see that blockchains are investing into BD to attract institutional users. And the incentive is RWA liquidity, which is among the stickiest in crypto. Once the liquidity for RWA ends up on chain, it's basically there. It stays there. Very rarely is an issuer jumping from one blockchain network to the other. Now, we've seen BlackRock with their BUIDL fund kind of distribute where they have BUIDL living. I believe it's on 4+ chains now, maybe 5 or 6. It launched on Ethereum and now it's on Solana and some others. Asset managers like RWAs because fees are cheaper. There's less friction to move assets. Currently, Ethereum has 1/3 of the RWA market cap, and that supports its deep liquidity. It also shows that TradFi and institutional users want to have mature smart contract tooling, and Ethereum is just a household name. It just is what it is. This is really interesting, and I have to admit, until I read the story, I had never heard of Provenance Blockchain. Provenance Blockchain has 27% of the market share, a quarter of the market share. So nearly half, a little bit more than half of all of the RWAs out there live on Ethereum and Provenance Blockchain. Super interesting. BNB Chain, Ripple, Ledger, and Solana each have approximately 6% of their own. But all three are doubling down on institutional grade infrastructure and issuer pipelines as they compete for their share. So this is another reason why I liked today's grouping of news. It's boring. It's a lot of capital. And frankly, it's what I've been talking about since 2023 as the killer use cases for blockchain and where a blockchain ecosystem should go if they want to be here in 5 to 10 years. They need stablecoins, predominantly USDT and USDC. And they need to make paths for RWAs to onboard. And RWAs is a huge umbrella. Private debt, corporate debt, United States debt, like treasury bills, tokenized securities and equities, like tokenized stocks, and so much more. And it's sad because I remember being in Hong Kong, October of 2023, in the room with Neo. Neo's an Alt-L1 that's been around since 2014, but testnet's live since 2015 and mainnet live since 2016. And Neo's an ecosystem that's faltering. It's old. It's not sexy. It's not just demanding attention from investors or market participants. And it needs to reinvent itself. And in October 2023, I gave a presentation on how we needed to onboard stablecoins and prepare for RWAs. And that conversation was met with deaf ears. It is 2.5 years later, almost 3. And there's still no stablecoins on Neo other than the native over-collateralized stablecoin. But there's a lot of issues there. And the RWAs on Neo are non-existent. 2.5 years where an opportunity to attract sticky liquidity was thrown out the window. And so, if you're a blockchain ecosystem and you want to be here in years to come, build for where the money's coming from. RWAs and stablecoins. And on my last piece of news, Bitwise, who, let's just throw this out there, recently launched its own hyperliquid ETF, has called HYPE, the HYPE token, a Gen 2 crypto token and said it's undervalued. Matt Hougan, who is a phenomenal follow, go follow Matt Hougan if you haven't, says HYPE is undervalued as the trading platform is expanding beyond crypto into equities, pre-IPO stocks, commodities, and prediction markets. He said, HYPE is the best performing large cap crypto asset in 2026, up 77% year to date. And I still think investors are underestimating its impact and its value, end quote. Hyperliquid has generated $170 billion in trading volume over the past month. HYPE token holders accrue fees from trading on the platform. And also 24/7 trading. Not available to Americans, but I think people know how to use a VPN. Bitwise also recently launched its own HYPE-based ETF, which might be why Matt Hougan is out here talking his book. But that being said, Hyperliquid is among the emerging most used platforms, especially during a down bear market. Very impressive. HYPE has room to be a Gen 2 token, which is like a security. I don't know how. Actually, here. It's like a security because 99% of trading fees generated on Hyperliquid go directly into buying HYPE, which means more trading equals more buybacks, which equals more value accrual, and there's no ambiguity. A security largely is when a company says the price of this asset will go up based off of the activities of our company and what we're doing in the market. And so that's why this quote Gen 2 end quote HYPE token might be like a security because the value of HYPE probably increases with more activity on the platform. A, you pay for trading fees with HYPE. So people will probably want to buy hype so that they can trade. B, fees are used to buy back hype. So the platform is saying, I will buy back hype. And the assumption is when an asset is continuously bought back, that the price will go up. And so that's what makes it like a security. This entity is purchasing an asset, a stock, quote unquote stock, if you will. And with all those purchases, the price of that goes up according to market, according to macroeconomics philosophy. The more something is used and the less of the supply there is, the higher the price goes for that thing. So just wanted to point this out. This year, I've been purposely trying to focus more on Hyperliquid when possible, because I do think it's one of the darling projects to succeed and thrive during the bear market that we currently find ourselves in. All right, folks. With all that said, thank you for tuning in to today's Daily Digital Download. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our newsletter at thesmarteconomist.beehive.com. We're trying to provide you alpha every week. And hopefully you glean some insights and information from these daily digital downloads. I appreciate the time you spent here, and I look forward to catching you tomorrow. Until then, have a beautiful, safe, happy,